Hello my quilting friends! My name is Leah Day, and in this video I want to teach you how to create this beautiful wavy border. And I am quilting this on my Q-Zone Hoop Frame Pro on the Janome Horizon 8200. And that is giving me almost 8 inches of vertical quilting space here. So I have enough space that I can quilt this entire 6-inch border. And I can even come down into, this is a drunkard's path block, and I could come down into this if I wanted to, but I want to be able to fill this entire border with these beautiful wavy lines. And I am quilting this with my Super Slide ruler. So the 8200 does have a very wide base here, so I'm kind of just outlining this with my hands, and you can see that's almost a 8-inch wide base right here, this area around the needle plate of the machine, and that is big enough to support the ruler. Now it is a little arched, so the ruler is slightly tippy, so you want to keep that in mind as you're gripping it. And I have found also that you kind of have to be careful gripping and pressing too hard on the quilt when you're using a sure stitch regulator, because you can press so hard that you can't move the machine very well, and then that throws off your stitches. So I want to share all of these tips with you, how I got this set up and how I centered it in the quilt. Let me pull the machine back and you can see I have nice mitered corners here, and I have actually centered the border up so that as I repeat it through the other sides, it's going to make a really nice effect through those corners. So to get started, here's what I did. I know this is the center of the quilt. Because of the way it's pieced, I know that's the center seam line. And so I lined up my ruler with that line. And you've got to remember that everything to do with ruler quilting is based on a 1/4 inch, because the foot itself is a 1/4 inch from the edge of the foot to the needle. So I line this up so that the center line, there's like a center etched line on the ruler, is lined up with the seam line running through the middle of the quilt. And I started in the middle, I pulled up thread here, and then I quilted over, and with this ruler, it is continuous line. You just need to stop a 1/4 inch from the end. So there's 2 lines etched, and you just want to stop on the line right before the end, and then that is going to create a continuous nice curve. You've also got straight lines printed in the center of the ruler, and that allows you to line up with seam lines. Like right here, the seam line between the border and the quilt itself, the center of the quilt, I was able to line that up and keep it nice and straight. So there's a lot of a lot of little details that go into this ruler that make it really good for this and help you get it stable and set it up really nicely to do a border design like this. So I stopped here and then shifted the ruler over. You can also flip it and then line up with that center line again with where you stopped, and that the same curve is on both sides, so you can do that, and that helps you maintain stability. So then I quilted to this end and then flipped it one more time and then stitched to that miter, and that's where I stopped. So I basically stitched that first line from the center to the miter in the corner, then I pulled up thread again and stitched it to this other side, and that kind of set the foundation. That is my guideline. From then on, I could start over here using my ruler as a guide and just simply line up the line 1 that's etched 1 from the edge. So here you can see I have the curves actually etched in there too. And I lined up with the one that's 1 from the edge, because that's a 1/4 inch plus the 1/4 inch on my foot. That resulted in 1/2 inch spacing. That's resulting in this really, really beautiful spaced out set of lines. So it's really just a matter of then lining up with the line before and then quilting across. But as I said, it's a little bit tricky. You kind of have to get this perfect balance of pressure and firmness here on the machine in order to not put too much pressure on it, which stops you from being able to move the machine, which stops the regulator. I'm using a sure stitch regulator here, guys, and that would stop that from working properly. And you can see I have a few big stitches, and that is because I was pressing just a little bit too hard. So it's a balancing act, and I'm still getting the hang of it. So here we go. I'm going to show you how it works. I'm going to drop my needle down. I'm just using the needle up, needle down button on my machine. I'm going to pull my machine away a little bit. I've got a short little thread tail because I used my thread cutter the last time I cut my thread. I'm going to reposition that needle, try and get it exactly where it was before, drop my needle down, and I'm going to take a single stitch. And I'm shifting the machine over ever so slightly so it's not in place. Okay, there we go. Now I'm just lining up this ruler, and visually I'm looking at the line that's etched on that ruler. That is one from the edge. I'm lining that up with the line of quilting that I did before. I'm trying to line that up so it's nicely lined up and they're stacked right on top of each other. And I gotta say, this is a little easier when I'm standing versus setting. I am setting right now. I have the machine set up and frame set up low. However, there is like this big bulky front here, and I have a feeling that if I lift the whole frame up to standing, this bulky front's gonna get in my way. So I'm gonna leave the frame at setting and just kind of deal with sometimes I might not be exactly perfectly positioned, but I think that's okay. And so here's that situation I told you about. I'm putting too much pressure on the ruler, so I need to lighten up a little bit with my fingertips. There we go. Now I can move easily and smoothly. I'm going to walk my hand down, and I'm going to click that off and reposition the ruler. Anytime that it starts to just feel out of control, or you're just, you know, you don't have control over the ruler, or maybe you're not getting good stitches from the machine, just go ahead and click it off and reposition. All right, that one was a little bit smoother start. It's like I want to hold the ruler down, but I don't want to hold it so firmly that it is stopping the machine from moving smoothly. So it's a light press. So I'm pressing with my fingertips here rather than really gripping this the way I might if I was working on one of my long arms. And maybe it's just a bad habit that I've gotten into, you know, putting my rulers in a death grip. I think that that's actually a bad habit and I need to get out of it. So this is good. Now let's try for a longer line. Let's see if I can line this up. And you can see here I am lining up so that the needle is one line from the edge of the ruler, clicking my regulator on, and I'm pressing too hard, so I need to lighten up. There we go, lighten up. I just have to kind of laugh at myself every time I do that. Lighten up, Leo, lighten up. There we go, click that off. All right. And you can see, you know, once you get into kind of a rhythm with this, it is going to go fairly fast, but, you know, this is 1/2-inch space quilting, so this isn't going to be the quickest quilting design in the world, but I really wanted to finish this quilt and make it look nice. I think this will be a perfect little baby quilt for Betty, and, you know, it was worth spending the time to make all of these beautifully spaced lines and have them come out just exactly right. So here we go, a few more repositions and I will be done. And it looks like I have only one more full line of quilting to do, and then I will be doing partial little bits of curves for the next few because I'll be running off the edge of my quilting space. I'll be running off the edge of the quilt. So here we go. Got one more little bit of the line here. And if ever you find that the line on the ruler is just not lining up with what you did before, something might have gotten off previously, that can definitely happen. So just shift it back and forth until it mostly lines up, and that will be good enough. There's certainly no need to pick anything out. I mean, I had a few big stitches here and there because of, you know, just getting the hang of this, just getting the feel of being able to move the machine smoothly and easily. And also getting the regulator to work with me too. So I had some big stitches. I did not rip any of them out. There we go. So I've stopped. Here is my miter, my beautifully pieced miter. I've stopped there. I'm going to use my needle up button to lift the needle up, slide the machine away, and then hit my thread cutter. And so I'm going to go on ahead and bring up my thread tail to the surface and tie off and bury it. So that is basically the process. Once I set that starting line, starting in the middle, stitching to both corners, then it's really just a wash and repeat of stitching from one end to the other. Now, you might be wondering why I'm starting on the left and stitching on the right. That is not an accident. Even though this is a home machine on a frame and it works great, it's still a home machine on a frame, and the machine's going to like it if you are feeding things through it more similar to it being a home machine, meaning that stuff is going through the machine from front to back. You know, this is still the front of the machine technically, and this is still the back of the machine. The feed dogs are still there. They're still doing their thing. They're still thinking that they're in charge. They're not. but, you know, the machine will still like it if you feed from left to right with the fabric moving that way through. And you're going to find that you're going to get better looking stitches, particularly whenever you're quilting something like this, a design like this. All right, so from here, I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to line up, pull up thread 1/2 inch away from my previous line, stitch across. Whenever I reach a point, and it looks like I'll have just one more line, here you can see I'm going to get really close to the edge. What I can do is then be able to line up my ruler and be able to knock out this whole little pocket with my ruler, just going one line at a time to fill that in. I could also fill that in with a different design. I could put in stippling or paisley or any other design that I wanted to in that little pocket. That would look really good too. So that's it for this video. I hope you learned a lot and you enjoyed seeing how I quilted this wavy border with my super slide ruler. Now, if you'd like to learn about any of the tools or products that I used in this video, the Q-Zone Hoop Frame Pro, the Janome 8200, or the Super Slide Ruler, you can find all of these on my website at leahday.com. I am a dealer for both Janome and Grace Company, and I can't wait to help you find the perfect frame and quilting design for your quilts. So come and learn more at leahday.com. Until next time, let's go quilt.